Today, the Matt Walsh Show, more revelations about that illegal alien Maryland man that Democrats have turned into a martyr. It turns out that this guy is an even bigger scumbag, allegedly, than we initially thought. I've got the details. Also, Tim Walz brags about his ability to code talk to white guys. What does that mean? And if he's such a good code talker to white guys, why do white guys hate him so much? And my interview on Tucker Carlson's show yesterday has gotten a lot of reaction and attention. We'll talk about it. Also, my negative review of Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, has gotten a lot of reaction as well, nearly all of it extremely negative. I'll explain again why everyone is wrong and I am right. And there's been a week-long outrage cycle over a prank call made by a college kid. This story proves that the BLM-era racial insanity is not over. We'll talk about all that and more today on The Matt Walsh Show. I'm juggling life as a husband, father, and show host. Trust me, things are generally chaotic around here. Can you imagine trying to somehow eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every single day? Well, sounds pretty miserable, not to mention the hours it would take. And to be honest, sometimes I just want to roll through a drive-thru and order something that would make a doctor quietly weep. But that's where Balance of Nature Fruits and Veggies comes in. It's literally the easiest way to get all those fruits and vegetables that you should be eating, 31 whole ingredients to be exact, into your diet every single day. Balance of Nature takes real fruits and vegetables, freeze-dries them, which preserves all the good stuff, grinds them into a powder, and stuffs them into convenient capsules. Just take them daily, and your body handles the rest. No chopping, no prep, no sad, wilted produce in your fridge drawer of good intentions. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Walsh for 35% off your first order as preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Walsh. You know, it's easy to criticize the media these days, particularly if you're a conservative. Every day, if not every hour, there's a new example of media incompetence or corruption that we could spend all day talking about. But today, we need to take a different approach. Today, it's important to praise the news media, specifically the esteemed outlet known as Reuters. And that's because, contrary to their reputation as one of the least credible news organizations on the planet, this week, Reuters managed to do some really quality reporting. Credit where credit's due. They shot exclusive and highly newsworthy footage that, for one reason or another, nobody else was able to obtain. Unfortunately, this Pulitzer-worthy footage doesn't have any audio, but we'll put it up on the screen right now, and you can see it. If you're watching the audio podcast, the footage is taken from a drone that was hovering above the courtyard at Bluebonnet Immigrant Detention Center in the small town of Anson, Texas, which is about 200 miles west of Dallas. The footage is from April 28th, and as the drone flies overhead, 31 inmates join hands and they start forming letters with their bodies. And within a few seconds, it's clear that they're spelling out the distress signal, SOS. And to their credit, it's a pretty convincing performance, with the exception of the three people at the top of the S. You can see pretty clearly in this shot. I don't know what's going on there. Everyone else is in position. All the other illegal aliens are doing exactly what they rehearsed in their cell. They spent hours rehearsing this together. What else do you have to do when you're in prison? But these three illegal aliens at the top of the S either didn't get the memo or, they're lazy and slow. Either way, regardless of your politics, we can all agree that those three inmates should be deported first. In the meantime, it's probably worth asking exactly how Reuters knew that it would be a good idea to position a drone and a small airplane directly above the courtyard of this detention facility at that precise moment. I mean, it's not easy to fly drones for very long. They have batteries that run out. Planes are pretty expensive the last time I checked, so you're not just going to fly a plane around indefinitely. So how exactly was that coordinated? For whatever reason, Reuters doesn't seem to want to explain that. Instead, here's what Reuters wrote, quote, detainees at the Bluebonnet Immigrant Detention Center in Anson, Texas, sent the outside world a message this week. SOS. With a Reuters drone flying nearby, 31 men formed the letters in the dirt of the facility on Monday. 10 days earlier, dozens of Venezuelan detainees at the center were given notices by immigration officials that alleged that they were members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua and subject to deportation under a wartime law, close quote. Now, evidently, these inmates are worried that they'll be deported to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. So to prevent that outcome, they're telling Reuters that they're not actually gang members. And they're also doing these ballet performances in the courtyard with Reuters acting as their videographer. Now, to be clear, there's no allegation in this story that these inmates are being mistreated in any way in the detention center. Their sole concern is that they might be deported from this country, where they have no right to be, and sent to their home country. So this is probably the least sympathetic SOS in the history of SOSs. We're not talking about a bunch of innocent people going down with the Titanic or something. This isn't Tom Cruise and Castaway. These are people who, at a minimum, do not belong inside this country's borders, at a minimum. But to be fair to these inmates, you can see why they might think that this would work. And that's because for the past several weeks, as we've discussed, Democrats have fallen over themselves in defense of a so-called Maryland man who they say was wrongly deported to El Salvador without sufficient due process. And this individual, whose name is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a name you've heard many times by now, is a 29-year-old Salvadoran and a suspected member of the gang MS-13. And he was deported to El Salvador's terrorist confinement center for two reasons. First of all, and most importantly, he didn't have a legal right to be in this country. And secondly, there was a lot of evidence that he belonged to MS-13, including the fact that police found him hanging out with two MS-13 gang members in a Home Depot parking lot while he was wearing gang clothing. Specifically, he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouth of the presidents on the separate denominations, which is, how they differentiate themselves in this gang. It's not something that you wear as just like a normal person. Nevertheless, several prominent members of the Democrat Party, including Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, declared that Garcia was somehow wrongly deported and belonged in the United States. Now, to the extent that this argument makes any sense, it hinges on the idea that Garcia was denied due process. The Democrats are saying that the Trump administration didn't make any effort to verify that this guy was in the country illegally, and therefore they could, by the precedent they've set, we're being told, they could deport anyone to El Salvador if they wanted, even an American citizen. They could come into your house right now and just take you to El Salvador. Now, in order to buy that logic, you need to ignore the fact that an immigration judge, along with an appellate immigration review board, each ruled that there was, quote, sufficient evidence to support Mr. Abrego Garcia's gang membership. Additionally, you'd have to ignore the fact that Garcia admitted in court documents that he entered the country illegal. In other words, if you ignore all of the due process that Garcia received, then sure, he didn't receive due process. Now, when Democrats went all in on defending Garcia, they made the calculation that, they could find a way to spin all this. They determined that they could convince a lot of people that for whatever reason, this guy is really a martyr. And to that end, swarms of Democrats flew to El Salvador to spend time with him. They sent a bunch of lawmakers to El Salvador to publicly sympathize with a suspected gang member because that's the kind of person they idolize. In fact, one of those Democrat Congressman, Maxwell Alejandro Frost of Florida, once wrote on social media, quote, "Effing with my gang gonna get you spilled," which in fairness is at least more literate and coherent than anything Jasmine Crockett has ever said. Now, for Democrats, the strategic mistake they made here was obvious, which is that, usually when the left does the hagiography routine, starts canonizing one of these violent criminals, they do it after the criminal is dead. And, it's a lot cleaner that way because a dead person isn't capable of causing you any further embarrassment. It's also easier for people to sympathize with a dead person because a dead person isn't a potential threat to their communities. Now, obviously, a lot of the people who mourned George Floyd would not have been happy if he'd somehow been resurrected from the dead and moved in next door, along with his bags of meth and fentanyl and his fake $20 bills. But in this case, Democrats abandoned their typical game plan. They tried to make a martyr out of a criminal who is still alive. It was a major political gamble and one that was destined to backfire. And indeed, that's exactly what's happening. Now, we've already talked about the 2021 domestic violence accusation against Garcia that was made by his wife, a woman named Jennifer Vasquez Sora. Sora didn't show up in court to pursue the case, so the charges were dropped. But in her written accusations, Sora claimed that Garcia had grabbed and beaten her. Quote, "At this point, I'm afraid to be close to him. I have multiple photos/videos of how violent he can be and all the bruises he's left on me." Now, at the time, to the extent Democrats could defend this, they pointed to the fact that, nothing was ever proven in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt, or they made procedural arguments about how in this country, even the worst offenders are entitled to due process, even though Garcia received due process. The one thing they didn't say was believe all women. Instead, they suggested that perhaps this was just a spur-of-the-moment complaint and it didn't really reflect the true character of this alleged gang member. For her part, Representative Pramila Jayapal of Seattle stated that Garcia's case is jaw-dropping and a miscarriage of justice. She said that the Trump administration should be deeply ashamed of the pain and terror that we're putting innocent people and their families through. In other words, she's saying Garcia is innocent and that he's being kidnapped by the White House. The implication, of course, is that his wife is lying in these papers and that we should feel sorry for Garcia. And that's what Democrats went with because in their eyes, it's still 2017. They think that people still respond to this kind of emotional blackmail, even when they're defending some of the worst people on the planet. Now, one of the many problems with this strategy is that inevitably more information about Garcia would come out. And with every passing day, it gets more and more comical and pathetic to watch Democrats stand by him. Indeed, Fox has just obtained yet another complaint by Garcia's wife. So this is separate from the one that we already knew about. This one is an application for a protective order from 2020. We'll put this up on the screen. This is the guy that Democrats have rallied around, made him a saint. As you can see, Garcia's wife alleges that he committed various acts of abuse, including kicking, slapping, shoving, mental injury of a child, and detaining against will. As Fox reports, quote, the form said Abrigo Garcia had threatened her, and she wrote, quote, I also have a recording that he told my ex-mother-in-law that even if he kills me, no one can do anything to him. So to be clear, the allegation is that Garcia threatened that he could murder his wife and get away with it. And why was he saying get away with it? What does he mean that no one can do anything about it? Is he making reference to his gang ties? Possibly. The document also alleges that his wife accused him of verbal and physical abuse against her and mental abuse against her children. In December 2019, he allegedly grabbed her hair in the car and dragged her out of the car, leaving her in the street. She wrote that he also broke her son's tablet, broke doors in the house, pushing her against the wall, broke a phone and a television, and damaged the walls that same spring, close quote. Now, Garcia's wife eventually requested to have this protection order rescinded so that he could take part in her son's birthday, and that he, quote, also agreed to continue counseling, and if not, he's willing to sign divorce papers. Now, from these documents, at a minimum, it's clear that Garcia's wife did not file for the protective order in 2021 as some sort of spur-of-the-moment overreaction. She was begging the courts for years to protect her from this psychopath, a psychopath who, according to Democrats, is innocent to a jaw-dropping degree. But again, the story does not end there. It turns out that when you're dealing with a complete scumbag, there's more news every day, and none of it is good. So we'll put this document up on the screen. This is a document from a court case in which Garcia's wife sought to obtain custody of the couple's two children. It was obtained by the New York Post. And again, this is new to us, new information being reported. And specifically, this is an affidavit from the ex of Garcia's wife, a man named Edwin Ramos. As you can see, he writes, quote, she is dating a gang member. Quote, Ramos went on to claim that he feared for his children's lives, alleging that Shora had tried to kill herself and had left the kids with an 11-year-old babysitter, according to the August 2018 documents. Now, again, if you're a Democrat in Congress, you might think that you can spin this one too. And Republicans are certainly hoping that they'll try. Maybe we'll get a statement from Pramila Jayapal explaining that Ramos and Garcia's wife were involved in a conspiracy to defame Garcia, stretching back several years. Maybe Democrats will explain that these two people, cooked up the accusation that Garcia was in a gang and then lured him to a Home Depot parking lot with other MS-13 members and convinced him to wear gang clothing. And that's basically their only option at this point, short of just cutting the ripcord and abandoning this whole narrative before it gets even worse. As you can tell from the steady drip of documents like this, it's extremely likely that we've still only seen the tip of the iceberg. The more we learn, the more that this guy appears to be an inveterate scumbag. So to recap, he never had any legal right to be here. The police have reason to think he's a member of a violent gang. Several judges agreed with them. And his wife repeatedly over years, that he beat her and terrorized his children. And the ex corroborates many of these claims. This is the man that 100 days into Donald Trump's second term, Democrats have decided to glorify. This is the kind of injustice that Reuters is worried about, which is why they're currently sending drones and planes to fly over immigrant detention centers. Now, at this point, we can be pretty sure that Democrats will probably start to slowly slink away from this whole thing if they haven't already. In fact, there are currently some reports that Hakeem Jeffries, Democrats' leader in the House, is privately telling members of his party to stop going to El Salvador. And if that's true, it's probably the first intelligent thing that Hakeem Jeffries has done in his entire life. After all, just imagine how this would play out if Reuters and these Democrat lawmakers were to succeed in their mission. That's actually the worst thing that could happen to them now, is that they succeed. Like, what happens if Democrats get their way and Garcia is let back into the country and gets out without any bond because of some bitter California judge who hates this country and never had any children to take care of, and then he proceeds, after that point, to kill his wife and child? I mean, based on these documents, that's certainly not outside the realm of possibility. It's the kind of thing that inevitably happens when you allow violent thugs into your country. How exactly would Democrats spin that one? We might soon find out, assuming this latest propaganda effort by Reuters is successful. I mean, in no uncertain terms, Democrats have tied their political futures to this lowlife. And now all we have to do is block the exits and not let them back away like, Homer Simpson into the bushes. They own this. Whatever Kilmar Garcia has done in the past or does in the future, and whatever thousands of other gang members like him have done in the past or do in the future, the Democrats have endorsed it. They could not have been any clearer about their priorities in the first 100 days of Trump's second term. They are wedded to violence and terror and the destruction of the country, and we can't let anyone ever forget it. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. When your metabolism is working correctly, you feel the benefits in every aspect of life. With Lumen, the world's first handheld metabolic coach, you can gain insight and stay on track when it comes to improving your health. Think of your metabolism as your body's engine. It's what transforms food into the energy that keeps you going all day. When your metabolism is working at its best, practically everything gets better. Weight management becomes easier, your energy stays up, workouts are more effective, and you even sleep better. That's why Lumen was created. Plus, using it couldn't be simpler. I breathe into my Lumen first thing in the morning to understand my metabolism and get a personalized nutrition plan for the day. I can also check before and after workouts and meals to know exactly what's happening in my body in real time. Make informed decisions about your nutrition and lifestyle this spring and summer with Lumen. The warmer months are coming. Spring back into your health and fitness. Go to lumen.me/Walsh to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Walsh for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. All right, show is late today. Again, not my fault for once. For once. Usually it is, but this time it isn't. I flew to an undisclosed location earlier this week to go do Tucker Carlson show. That episode is out now. And I really enjoyed the conversation. We covered a wide range of topics. I thought it was a lot of fun. I appreciated Tucker having me on. Naturally, of course, we talked about, like a dozen different topics over the course of 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever it was. The thing that people are hyper-focused on, of course, is the relatively brief part of the conversation that had to do with Israel, and where I said, well, you've heard me say, if you listen to the show, you've heard me say plenty of times before that I'm not focused on other countries. I only care about my own. My take on foreign aid. It's all the stuff that you've heard. And we actually have a couple of clips that we'll play in a few minutes. But you should check out the interview. Although that's not why I'm late. I'm late because on the flight home, our plane lost cabin pressure, or they were having a cabin pressure issue, is what I think the way they phrased it. So we had to descend down to 10,000 feet or lower than that, and then the plane had to fly around in circles to burn fuel because you can't land a plane when there's too much fuel because it's too much weight. And then we had to stop in an airport that was just a small. We had to stop in Richmond Airport, which is not where we were going. Take another plane this morning. After all of that, and that's why we're late. I will just say that, and it was fine. The pilot, they got us there safely. They got us on the ground in one piece. That's all that matters. I will just say that that when this issue first, well, I kind of noticed that the plane was flying. We'd been in the air for a bit, but we seemed to be lower to the ground. It seemed unusual to me. But then I thought, well, it's just my imagination. What do I know? And then the pilot comes on the intercom and he opens with these words. He says, "No need to panic," but he actually said that. Okay, folks, well, no need to panic. Never lead with that as a pilot. I don't care what's happening. Never tell us not to panic. That's like when your kids come into the room and they say, "Okay, Dad, promise you won't be mad." It's the worst possible intro. So we landed safely and everything was fine. And the panic so I didn't panic. I got nervous when he said that, but I didn't panic. I did panic after we landed and we got off the plane. We were trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to get home? And it became clear very quickly that there's not a lot of flights leaving Richmond. There was one flight because this plane was not going to fly. So there was one flight leaving at 11 o'clock this morning, and it was a Southwest flight. And even worse, the only seats available, the only spots available because they don't have assigned seats, were in the late Bs. So I had like B50, okay, in my boarding group, and that is. So I'm imagining a scenario where I'll be flying on a Southwest flight in a middle seat. After all the incessant complaining you hear me do on this show about airplanes, and after I've said so many times that the person in the middle seat is not a human and has no human rights, you know where I stand on that. And now I'm thinking I'm going to be stuck on a plane for an hour and a half in a middle seat on a Southwest flight. Turns out it was actually in an aisle seat, but it was still quite awful. All right, we'll play a couple clips of that later on, but I wanted to start with this. Daily Wire reports Governor Tim Walz claimed during a recent listening tour event that former Vice President Kamala Harris chose him as a running mate because he could code talk to white guys and provide a permission structure in which they might feel comfortable voting for a black woman. This was at an event at Harvard Kennedy School Forum, a listening tour. I don't know what a listening tour is, but that's what he's doing. And so here's the clip. Let's listen.
I knew I was on the ticket, I would argue, because we did a lot of amazing progressive things in Minnesota that improved people's lives. But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this.
Well, where to even begin with this? I mean, first of all, it's sort of amazing that they're admitting this, that he's coming out and admitting that his presence on the ticket was a ploy, that it was purely cynical. He was nothing more than a mascot, which we already knew, of course. We already knew that, but to admit it is a whole other thing. But then you notice that there are no conclusions being drawn from this. Yes, they did bring on Tim Walz in a cynical attempt to code talk to white guys. How did that work out, Tim? How did that pan out? How did your code talking go? Did it resonate? What happened? What's the conclusion of that story? Well, the conclusion is that it was an unmitigated failure. It was a disaster. It was a total humiliation. That's the conclusion. And why is that? Well, first of all, because you aren't convincing. Nobody buys you as a regular middle-aged working class dad. The cosplay was not convincing at all. I mean, you could talk about trucks and hunting all you want, but it only took us about 15 seconds of watching you like flamboyantly prance around on stage for us to recognize that you are not the man's man that you're pretending to be. The only people who were fooled by Tim Walz were liberal women. Liberal women saw the camo hat and they heard him say the word football, and they said, "Wow, my husbands will love this guy." It's the political equivalent of when your wife comes home and says, "Hey, I heard about this men's retreat that you would love." "Oh, you'll love it. They sit around a campfire, and they eat meat and they talk about their feelings. You would love it." And then you hear that and say, "Well, no, that sounds like the worst thing that of all time. That sounds like the absolute worst possible thing that I could ever do. But that's Tim Walz. Tim Walz is a woman's idea of what resonates with men, specifically a liberal woman's idea of what resonates with men. So it didn't work. And it didn't work because men are, largely practical, right? Men care about utility. And when it comes to our leaders, we want people who will do the job and do it well. We don't care what their hobbies are. We don't care if they seem like, they'd make a good friend. We're not looking for a hunting buddy, okay? We're not looking for someone that will sit down and have a beer with them. We're not actually looking for that. We don't care about that. I've never heard that in all my years of talking politics with people and with men, I've never heard a man say of a politician that he supports, say, "Oh yeah, I love that guy. I really support him." It just seems like the kind of guy I'd want to sit down and have a beer with. I've heard that from pundits. I've heard that on cable news. I've never heard an actual person say that as a reason for why they support someone. So when somebody is running for office and they say, "Well, I like to hunt and I drive a truck," our immediate response is, "Okay, okay, so what do I care what you do with your free time?" It's like, I'm not good for you. I'm not impressed. It's no different than if I went to the dentist and I'm sitting down in the chair and the dentist says, because I'm going to get a root canal, and the dentist says, "Well, before we get started, I just want to let you know, because I see that you're a man as well. I want to let you know that I like country music, and I wear blue jeans most of the time. Just a little code talk. Let's do a little code talk. Us bros. Let's do some code talk." If a dentist said that to me, I would say, "Oh, well, good for you. But can you fix my teeth?" is the question. So what do you, is that, you are a dentist though, aren't you? That's the thing. I'm here really for the dental work part of it. That's what I'm really here for. So that's how you resonate with men. If you want to resonate with men, it's not through code talking, whatever the hell that means. It's by presenting yourself as a competent person who can do the job that you are applying for. All right, somebody named Owen McIntyre, who I believe is a man, firebombed a Tesla dealership back in March with, I think it was Molotov cocktails. And the federal government charged this guy with terrorism, which is what that is, right? A violent act causing hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage done for political reasons. That is what terrorism is. Which means that the feds argued, well, he should remain in custody leading up to his trial because he's a suspected terrorist. These are terrorism-related charges. But then a judge by the name of Judge Jessica Hedges has decided to release this guy from custody in the lead up to, while all this stuff is worked out. And here's the reason why he's being released from custody. Listen.
Bria and John, the government wanted Owen McIntyre to spend the time before trial behind bars, but the judge in Boston sided with the defense in this case, which cited multiple medical issues facing the 19-year-old, including autism spectrum disorder, gender dysphoria, and ADHD. McIntyre's attorney argued the teen should be released, citing serious and ongoing medical needs and treatments that could not or would not be provided while in federal detention. The defense filing says McIntyre is being treated for depression and since March has been receiving gender-affirming care. That care would likely be interrupted or terminated in federal custody.
So they're letting him out because of his serious medical problems that are all fake, by the way. They are serious as in seriously fake, seriously non-existent. I mean, if depression is an excuse for letting somebody out of prison, then every single person in prison should be let out of prison. Everyone in prison is depressed. It's a depressing place, I've heard. So that's sort of the point. That's part of the point anyway. And then we also hear that this dude is getting gender-affirming care, quote unquote, which began in March. But this attack also happened in March. So it began the same month that he attacked the Tesla dealership. So apparently this guy became trans and then immediately decided to go do terrorism. Or he did terrorism and then he immediately decided that he must be trans. I mean, however you solve that chicken or egg riddle, still you're left with this, what is an increasingly familiar connection between transgenderism and violence. I mean, it's almost like people who are at war with their own identity also tend to be at war with society in more, in a more direct and physical sense. It's almost like, you know what it's like? It's almost like hatred of the self becomes hatred of others. I don't know. It's almost like that. In fact, it is that. So, in any case, more nonsense from this radical left-wing judge. Nonsense enabled by the psychiatric industry and its invention of fake diseases that often function as nothing more than an excuse for antisocial, narcissistic behavior. But the thing we have to always remember about the judges is that, like I always say, these judges that do this, they are not bleeding heart liberals. They are not motivated by this kind of misplaced or exaggerated compassion. They are not. Sometimes you'll hear conservatives say of these judges that let criminals out of prison, say that they're weak, right? That these are weak, sensitive judges. That's not it. I think you give them way too much credit when you say that, because they're actually ruthless. They are ruthless, cruel ideologues. They do this because they want more chaos and more violence in the communities. They do this because they want to reward these criminals, especially these criminals that are attacking Tesla dealerships. So this is not any kind of sensitivity or compassion. This is a ruthless and total indifference to human life is what you're actually seeing from these judges. All right, I wanted to play this clip from the interview with Tucker. This one, just because this one's getting a lot of attention. This is one I'm seeing circulating a lot. It is, to me, not the most important thing we talked about or what we spent the most time on, but it's still important. And where we're kind of talking about, and I'm I guess, describing what I consider to be, what does it mean to be America first? And so here's that portion of the interview.
What did you think of the debate? A lot of this kind of broke through the surface in the debate between Dave Smith and Douglas Murray on Rogan a couple of weeks ago. Did you watch that? And
I did. I watched. I ended up watching. I wasn't planning on watching the whole thing, but I watched the whole thing over the course of a few days. It was a long debate, and I have a different. I come in with a different perspective than maybe some people who are really interested in the debate, in that I don't have a dog in the fight. Mm-hmm. I don't. Everyone is. I'm constantly hearing from the peanut gallery demanding that I kind of give my verdict or my take on Israel and Israel versus Palestine and all this kind of stuff. And I have given my take, and my take is I don't care that much. So I just don't care that much. I'm not just America first. I'm an American chauvinist, in that I only care about my own country. I honestly don't care about other countries. I wish them well. I don't wish any of them. I don't wish them ill. I wish the people of other countries well. I think they all have a right to defend themselves, and they should. I think that if you can't defend yourself as a nation, or if you can't survive without being propped up by another government, say ours, then you shouldn't exist as a country. That's just the way of the world. So
wait. If you can't exist without being propped up by another government, say ours, you shouldn't exist. Yeah. Israel cannot exist without being propped up by the United States.
You think so?
Its nuclear program came from the United States. Its weapons come from the United States. Its economy is supported by the United States. I'm not attacking Israel. I'm just saying, in point of fact, I think that's true. And I mean, Israel thinks it's true, or they wouldn't have armies of lobbyists and influencers in the United States. Bibi wouldn't have shown up twice in the past 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, the way, from my perspective, it seems like they can handle themselves quite fine. But any country, if there is any country out there that fundamentally cannot exist without being subsidized by American taxpayers, then not only should that country not exist, but that country already does not exist. It's not really.
That's interesting.
It's not really a country,
Right? No.
So that's it. America first. I think we should start talking more about American chauvinism. That's what we should be promoting. I am an American chauvinist, proudly, unapologetically. I love my own country. I care about my own country. Other countries have value to me only insofar as they help my own country. And this may be a simple way of looking at things. It may lack nuance, and I have heard that criticism. I hear the criticism all the time, but I've heard it in particular in response to that clip from some people saying that this is not a nuance. My foreign policy views are not nuanced, not a nuanced view. And you're right, it's not nuanced. It's not. And you know something? I don't care. I also lack nuance in the way that I favor my own children and my own wife over other people's children and wives. I do not have a nuanced view on that at all. As I said to Tucker, as that conversation continued, if I had to choose between saving my child or 1,000 strangers from a burning building, I would save my own child every time. Over 1,000 people without hesitation. I'd save my child over 1 million people. Is that a nuanced view? No. But it's natural, I believe. It's also moral. I am on this earth to protect my children. I'm morally called to it. And that's how I look at my country over other countries. Americans are my people. This is my home. It's my culture. It's my traditions, my ancestors. I value that over the customs and people of any other country. And by the way, I expect them to feel the same way. Right? If a Japanese person were to say to me that he values his people and his home over me and my home, I would say, good, you should. You should. You should be a patriot for your own country. I don't expect a Japanese person to be a patriot for America. It wouldn't mean anything. No, you should love your own country first. This is also one of the reasons why, by the way, when you hear people say, well, with every new administration, we hear this from the other side. They'll say, well, America's standing in the world has suffered. Look at the way the other countries look at us and think of us. I don't care. What I care what other countries are. They don't like us now. So? I don't care what they think. And also, I assume they should think that they're better than us. Right? Because that's their country. That's how you should see it. Just like if you came to me and said, you know what, I value my own children over yours. I would say, well, good, you should. Yeah, it would be weird if you didn't. Right? It'd be weird if you came to me and said, I value your children over mine. I don't want you to say that for a lot of reasons. And that's it. So that's my entire, that's my foreign policy. That's how I look at it. And that also informs my take on any of these global conflicts. And so every time I get the question, as you know, you've heard me respond to it so many times at this point, but what about Israel? It's like, what didn't you understand about America first? Why would that be? If I say, well, I value my own country over every other country, I care about my country the most, and then you say, well, would you say that about Israel? Of course I would. That's another country, isn't it? Why would that be a carve-out exception? It's not. You might as well say, well, yeah, you say that, but what about South Korea? Well, South Korea is South Korea. Again, I wish them well. I do. And I think that every country has a right to defend itself. Every country should pride itself, should have pride in itself. The people of other countries should be patriots of those countries. To me, all this is so obvious that it like most of what I say every single day, so obvious that it shouldn't need to be said. And And it also just comes naturally, I think, to most people in the world, and we don't question it, right? We don't. America first is a slogan here. I think the very fact that it needs to be a slogan, right, tells you that's part of the problem. It's like the fact that we have to go around talking about what a woman is, right? When you see people wearing shirts that have the definition of a woman, yeah, well, we need to do that here, but it's bad that that's necessary. And I think if you go to a lot of other countries, they probably don't have these same slogans where they have their own country, where they're going around saying, I put my own country first. Because to them, it's natural. Of course you do. What else would we do? By the way, speaking of shirts, along with being an American chauvinist, I'm also a greedy capitalist, which is why the merch team has made American chauvinist t-shirts, which are apparently now available at the Daily Wire store. So you can go pick up one of those and advertise your chauvinism to the world, which I think is a great thing to do. Also, okay, one more brief clip that I wanted to play, because just the theme here, I guess, is simplicity. And I have a simple approach to foreign policy. I also have a simple political ideology, which Tucker and I talked about. Let's play that.
I think I'm at the point where it's kind of like my whole ideology, my political ideology at this point is that I want my kids to go to heaven. I want my kids to go to heaven, and I want them to be good and happy people. That's what I want. So everything that we do in the home, and we're not perfect. We don't get this right perfectly, not even close to it. But everything we do in the home should be tailored towards that end, to help our kids be good and happy people. And that's also, those are the policies that I support. Those are my politics.
Sounds like Christian nationalism, Matt.
Guilty as charged. I'm a nationalist. I'm a Christian. So
another term I have never heard defined. Well, wow. What an interesting way to frame it. What a great way to frame it.
Okay, yeah. So that's and that's really it for me. As a father, it's my job to make sure that my kids go to heaven. It's my job to help them become good and happy people. Happy in the sense that only a good person can be, right? I'm not talking about momentary pleasure. I'm not saying that my goal in life is to make sure that my kids are entertained all the time. I mean, the happiness, the deep joy of being the person that you should be and doing what you are called to do by God in this world. That's what I mean. And so policy-wise, when it comes to policy, I am in favor of any policy that helps to create a country where my children, can be happy and good. Okay, I am in favor of anything that helps towards that goal. I am opposed to, and I hate, everything that interferes with it. Anything and anyone who would stand in the way of my children being good and happy people in this world, anything and anyone that would lead them into destruction and misery, I despise. I hate. I want to see destroyed. They're my mortal enemies. And it's as simple as that for me. And that consideration for me comes before anything. I mean anything. And that may sound scandalous to some people, the way that we're wired these days, because it even comes, shouldn't your first priority be, what about their rights? The Constitution? That to me, that's not God, right? That's not the ultimate truth to me. No, the thing that I care the most about is to protect my children and my family, and to make sure that we live in a country that, to the greatest extent possible, facilitates their happiness and their well-being. That's what I care the most about. That's the number one consideration. Every other consideration doesn't mean that there aren't other things that are important to consider, but every other consideration is underneath that. in order of importance. And I suspect that that's also something that not too long ago it would have been so obvious that you didn't need to say out loud, and I would like to think that it still is. Okay, let's get to the comment section.
If you're a man, it's required that you grow a beard. Hey, we're the Sweet Baby Gang.
Well, I haven't done the comment section in a while, but I had to bring it back to respond to some of the comments on yesterday's show, specifically the cancellation where I canceled Revenge of the Sith after watching the re-release in theaters. And the comments are, as expected, very negative, very much not in agreement with me, very upset, a lot of very upset people. And I say it's not a surprise, but I did think that the prequel trilogy was pretty widely understood to be crappy. I thought the prequels were infamous for being low quality, poorly written, sloppy cash grabs. I mean, there was a time when I think everyone basically saw it that way. But I guess now we've entered this alternate dimension where everyone's pretending that these terrible movies are actually good. So let's go through some of the comments. I'll just read a chunk of them right off the top. Might be the only time in history I disagree with you. This is an awful take. Matt having a non-awful take on movies challenge. Impossible. Matt Walsh on politics. Good. Matt Walsh on movies. Bad. Matt Walsh, stick to politics. Your movie takes risk the death of your side's victories in the culture war. Yes, our success in the culture war hinges on me liking Star Wars. I may have just destroyed the culture by not liking Star Wars. One guy on the internet doesn't like Star Wars. The culture's done. It's over. That's the kind of power I have. If I personally don't like something, it is a national crisis, which is how people treat it. I am not allowed to not like certain things. You're just not allowed. There are certain things, if you don't like it, people will let you know. No, you're not allowed to not like that. You have to like that. Then you know, you have to like it. Yeah, but I just don't. I just don't like it. Well, but you have to. You have to like it. Find a way to like it. Watch it until you like it. The beatings will continue until morale improves. Sorry, Matt, you're deadly wrong on this. Revenge of the Sith is amazing. Y'all tripping. Just came to say this dude is dead wrong. This might be the worst Matt Walsh take ever. Unsubscribing. There are a lot of those. A lot of unsubscribing. Okay, so thousands of responses like that. You notice what they're all missing? Which is any kind of explanation for how exactly I'm wrong. I laid out my case. I explained it in detail. I explained, citing examples, why the dialogue is bad, the acting's bad, the action choreography is bad, the story has a million plot holes. Now, does anyone step up to the plate and actually argue? You know, is anyone arguing that the acting is good? Do you want to tell me? Do any of you in the comments? Okay, do you want to tell me that Hayden Christensen, the lead actor, the guy this whole thing is about, put in a good performance? Really? Okay, so if you're going to rank like the great cinematic performances of all time, where is Hayden Christensen on that list? Where do you think? No, you don't want to say that. Because obviously it's not good. Okay, so then what about the dialogue? Does anyone really want to tell me that the dialogue is good? Does anyone dialogue that includes a scene where the bad guy literally throws up his fists and screams no into the air. You want to tell me that's good dialogue? Really? That's what you call good? That is actually dialogue that at this point could be written by ChatGPT. That is AI dialogue, okay? That's dialogue that is nothing but cliche. It's the definition of bad dialogue. So you want to tell me that's good dialogue? Look, I don't think you do. I don't think you do. I don't think anyone wants to actually argue with a straight face that the dialogue is good or that the acting is good. So, or maybe you do. So go ahead. Go ahead and make that argument. Tell you what, here's what I want you to do. Go through the script of which you could easily find the script on, or if you're a super nerd, you have it memorized. Give me, I don't know, 3 examples. No, not even 3. 1. Give me 1 example of good dialogue in the script. Give me 1 little snippet. A few lines, a little scene, a sequence, something. Just a conversation and cite it. Okay, give me a citation. So what I want you to do is, here you go, Matt. Here's this scene of the dialogue. Here's the dialogue, and this is good dialogue. I think you can't. I think you cannot find 1 snippet of good dialogue in the whole damn movie. I bet you can't. So then what is it? What about the action? Go back to the scenes where Emperor Ovaltine is fighting the 3 Jedis, and tell me that that's well choreographed, crisply executed action. You want to tell me that? I don't think you do. So I'm not seeing any arguments here. I'm just not. And there's so much more. I gave a lot of examples. I could have given many more examples of the problems with this movie. I didn't even get into the names of these characters. Who's the one, the robot, the evil robot that named General Grievous? Like General Grievous. Well, how'd you come up with that, George? Well, because he's evil and he commits grievous actions. Oh, wow. And then you got all these people in the comments that they think that's clever. Oh, that's clever. Do you get it? Because he's grievous. He does grievous things, and so that's his name. I don't know. Like, that's a terrible way to name a character. I don't know how else to explain it to you. In Austin Powers, which is a comedy, the joke is that the evil villain, his name is Dr. Evil. It's a joke because it's so on the nose that it's absurd. And in a serious movie, you would never name the villain literally evil. But George Lucas does that with a straight face. So, and then the robot has a cough. Why does a robot have a cough? Okay, what does a robot have I was just talking before we went on air. I got this whole argument with Jacob, who's, you know him from this show because I've destroyed him in Mortal Kombat 7 or 8 times now. And I don't want to get, I guess I'm spoiling it, but he came in to warn me. He says, I'm writing a whole piece for Daily Wire where I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to go piece by piece and prove why you're wrong about Star Wars. I'm going to debunk, I'm going to own you. And I'm looking forward to seeing the piece, but I asked him about this grievous. Why did the evil robot have a cough? And he said, well, because you don't know the lore. You don't know the lore of this. You have to understand the lore. You haven't, there's this, you have to read all the literature. Okay, I've spent years of my life studying Star Wars. And he said that the lore of this evil robot is that he used to be a person. But then he replaced his whole body with a robot. He became a robot, but he used to be a person. And that's why he has a cough. Because the actual guy had a cough, had like emphysema or bronchitis. And then he became a robot and he still has a cough. And I said, well, wait a second. So he replaced every part of his body with machines except his lungs that have pneumonia. That's the one part you don't replace? The part of your body that's the biggest problem is the one that doesn't turn robotic? So, explain that. Anyway. Okay, well, it's... Oh, well, here's another comment that annoyed me. What are we at? It's 8.5 minutes. Matt hates everything, only talks about movies he hates. Pure rage bait. I also want to say to this annoys me. And it's funny when I see comments like this, which I see all the time, especially when I commit the sin of not liking something. If I don't like something in pop culture everyone likes. But I talk about stuff I like all the time. I did a whole video just last week about why I like the movie Master and Commander. That was the only point of the video. There was no hook to it. It was nothing. I just like the movie Master and Commander. I think it's a great film. And so I made a video about why I like it. I did a video before that about why I like the show Severance. I did a video where I talked about 3 movies that are coming out this year that I'm looking forward to. I talk about books that I like all the time. And so I talk about stuff I like all the time. And people who listen to this show, they know that. They know that I talk about it. So the comments that say, well, you only talk about the stuff you don't like, they're actually, that's a self-report. You're self-reporting. Because what you're saying is that you only pay attention to the content that's negative. You only pay attention when I'm saying I don't like something. So when I put out a video saying, hey, let me tell you why I like this movie, you don't click on it because you don't think that's interesting. You only want to hear me hate stuff, which is fine. I get it. Okay, I understand it. I'm not, hey, everyone has their taste. But then don't blame me for that. Because you decide to ignore every time I say I like something, don't then turn around and blame me for not liking anything. You're only interested when I'm ranting and raving about the stuff that I hate. So, don't blame me. That's all. Okay, and here's the last guy. This was not all. This is one comment that I liked. Okay, here's the one comment. This is someone who disagrees with me, but here's the comment. It says, can we Star Wars fans accept the fact that a movie can be enjoyable as all hell and still be not that good or even bad? I watched this movie opening night in 2005, watched it several times since then, went to the theater for the re-release last week. I had a blast every time. That doesn't stop me from acknowledging that it's got a lot of issues regarding quality script and generally just making sense. That being said, I assume Matt went way overboard hating on it because hating fun stuff is his thing. But still, there's a lot of issues with Revenge of the Sith. Doesn't mean it's not super enjoyable and best of the prequels. Okay, that's fine. You see, I have no issue with that. No issue with you saying, yeah, it's not a great movie. It's got all these problems. I still like it. That's fine. You can like whatever you want. I'm not telling you not to like something. So that's perfectly fine. My problem is when people have a nostalgic or emotional attachment to something, so then they insist that we all have to pretend that the thing is actually good, that it's high quality art. I said that I didn't like Sonic 3, and I still have grown adults screaming at me in tears because I don't like Sonic 3. And it's fine if you want to say, yeah, Sonic 3, it's Sonic. It's not a great film, but I kind of liked it. That's fine. But don't try to tell me it's a good film. And yet this is what I have. Grown adults looking at me with a straight face and saying, no, Sonic 3 is a great film. What? It's a great film? Sonic 3? You would put it in the pantheon of the great films of all time? What is it, like The Godfather, Citizen Kane, Sonic 3, Casablanca? Come on. Let's get real, folks. So, it was 13 minutes on that. I've now spent about 30 minutes this week of total airtime talking about Revenge of the Sith. So this is what you get. I'll do more. I'll do 15 minutes tomorrow. So you're gonna try to hector and scold me into liking it. Well, 2 can play at that game. You don't want to get into a scolding competition with me. All right. Well, take a look around. Do you feel that something is happening? People are smiling at each other in public. Things aren't on fire, and reality, actual objective reality, is making a bit of a comeback. This is not a glitch in the matrix. It's what happens when the fever breaks. Welcome to the return of normal.
It's a new day. The sun is rising, the birds are singing, and things are returning to normal. It's norming in America. Today, we're actually arresting shoplifters, and fewer businesses are being burned down. All over America, pronouns are being dropped from bios. Men are not having babies, and fewer drag queens are flashing their genitals at children. Videos like this one aren't being shadow banned as much. People are saying master bedroom. And look at that. White people are reappearing in commercials. Oh, and guys, we can say guys again. America, the fever has broken. Now we can be sensible, nicer, and normal. Join us, and let's never go back to those weird angry, divisive times again. It's norming in America. Have a great norming, you hear?
Well, if that made you smile or at least blink twice in disbelief, good. Join us at dailywire.com/subscribe and become a part of the rebellion against the ridiculous. Normal is back, and this time we're keeping it. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. For the past week or so, there's been a sustained outrage cycle over a dumb kid prank calling Shedeur Sanders during the NFL draft. The kid apparently obtained Sanders' number from a football player at Berry College who happens to be the son of the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. And then when Sanders picked up the phone, the prank caller impersonated the general manager of the New Orleans Saints and said that Sanders would be selected soon in the draft, that he'd have to wait a little longer. Now, to a lot of people, as dumb and cruel as it was, the call was mildly entertaining because Sanders is extremely narcissistic and unlikable, and it looked like he wasn't going to get picked at all. And so here's what it looked like from both sides of the call when this happened, in case you missed it. Watch.
Hey, is this Shedeur? Hey, this is Mickey Loomis here, the GM of the New Orleans Saints. How you doing? This is Mickey Loomis here, GM of the Saints.
How you doing?
Good, how are you, man?
Good, been waiting on you.
Yeah, we have. It's been a long wait, man. We're going to take you with our next pick right here, man.
This ain't gonna be nothing to do.
Hey, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, man. Sorry about that.
What does that mean?
What? What'd he say?
I don't know.
How you gonna ask us what it mean and you was on the phone?
You heard that? He said you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. Sorry about that.
Why did he call?
What the? Hey, that's. I don't know what that was.
So everyone could tell right away that it's a prank. They're not exactly sure how these kids got Sanders' phone number, and it wasn't like especially well executed, the prank. I mean, he didn't. When you stumble over identifying yourself, then that's kind of a dead giveaway. But they weren't sure how he got the phone number since they had only told the NFL what it was. But beyond that, there's nothing particularly nefarious about the call. No one convinced Shedeur Sanders to wire some of his dad's money to a shady bank account. Nobody asked Shedeur Sanders to add two numbers together or to complete 5 sentences without saying #legendary out loud. So it was just a dumb prank call. That was it. Everybody involved should have moved on with their lives within about 5 seconds, because it really doesn't matter. But that's not what happened. And the reasons why it hasn't happened are worth exploring. But before we do that, behold this footage of Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. This happened yesterday, holding back tears as he grovels for forgiveness over his son's actions. The NFL fined the team $250,000 for this prank call that you just saw, and hit Ulbrich himself with a $100,000 fine. And then they apparently ordered him to participate in a struggle session where he acts like this prank call was an act of genocide or something. Watch.
First of all, I'd like to publicly apologize to Shedeur and the Sanders family for what occurred. Second of all, I want to publicly apologize to Mr. Blank, Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris, and the entire Falcons organization. My actions of not protecting confidential data were inexcusable. My son's actions were absolutely inexcusable. And for that, we are both deeply sorry. The NFL has taken action, and I fully respect the punishment. We take full responsibility, my son and myself, and we will not be appealing the fine in any way. Going forward, I promise my son and I will work hard to demonstrate we are better than this. Again, I'm deeply sorry for our actions.
This is just pathetic. And when we saw the footage, it did, like, the guy, Shedeur Sanders, didn't even buy it. It's a total nothing. It's a total nothing. And here we have this guy essentially denouncing his own son in a press conference, which I would just never do. I would never do, especially over this. Now, the official explanation here is that Ulbricht's son came across Sanders' number while he was browsing his dad's iPad at home when he was visiting his parents, and he apparently opened the unlocked iPad and navigated somehow to the list of phone numbers for the NFL prospects. Whether this is true or not, I really can't say, nor do I really care. I mean, it sounds a little weird about how he got the number, but again, who cares? I mean, there's no sense in playing Sherlock here because it is maybe the least consequential whodunit in the history of mysteries. This sad, sorry spectacle of a press conference is the end result of nonstop media-driven outrage over this story, over the fact that an entitled, underperforming quarterback wasn't picked immediately in the NFL draft and then was prank called. As he kept sliding further and further in the draft, the press pushed the narrative that Shedeur Sanders was the victim of racism. We talked about this at the beginning of the week. And as part of that process, he became completely untouchable. Nobody was allowed to make fun of him. And when somebody broke that rule and committed the sin of making a prank call at Sanders' expense, the press predictably melted down. And there's just, like I said, there's been a whole week of hysterical headlines and denunciations from ESPN personalities over this prank call. Which the prank call, it's a little mean. Yeah, it's a little mean. It's a little cruel to do that. But it's just a dumb thing. It doesn't matter. Also, if you're an 18-year-old kid, who among us hasn't done prank calls? And if you're an 18-year-old kid and somebody gives you the phone number to an NFL draft prospect who's going to be on TV and gives you and you have the possibility of making this prank call, at the age of 18, you're going to do it, right? Most 18-year-olds, given that opportunity for that level of prank call, that's an impossible temptation to turn down. It just is. It's an extremely depressing commentary in the state of this country that this prank call has generated far more media outrage than, for example, the murder of Austin Metcalf in Texas. A white kid was stabbed through the heart at a track meet, and the only major press conference we got was the family of the killer demanding sympathy. But a rich black athlete is mildly inconvenienced and maybe sort of humiliated for a few seconds, and that is somehow intolerable. What's also remarkable about the martyrdom of Shedeur Sanders is that other players in this year's draft were also pranked. And none of these pranks generated any outrage whatsoever. Why might that be? Now, one of the prank calls involved a white defensive tackle named Mason Graham, who played for the Michigan Wolverines, and he got a call from somebody claiming to be Kevin Stefanski with the Cleveland Browns, and here's what that looked like.
He's not going to answer.
Hello?
Hey, is this Mason?
Yes, sir.
Hey, this is Kevin Stefanski with the Cleveland Browns. You want to be a Brown, buddy?
Yes, sir.
All right, bring your ass. Dumb. No chance, bro. Go Bucks. You wish. You clown. You're a clown. You're actually a clown.
Now, you'll notice that that was actually a much more hostile prank call than the one that Shedeur Sanders was forced to endure at the hands of his tormentors. This one was actually malicious by comparison. It also makes it I understand the temptation. You have an opportunity to make this prank call. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm not saying you should do it. But think of a funnier bit than that. I mean, I'm mad at that because it wasn't funny. You totally botched it. And that's the punchline? Come up with a punchline for your prank call. I mean, think through the bit a little bit before you do this. It's sad. Back in my day, we put much more thought into our prank calls. Much more thought. But anyway, that happened. It's a lot more malicious, and no one is talking about it. Now, it's gone completely under the radar. It's only getting some minimal level of attention now because of the Shedeur Sanders situation blowing up. Before that, nobody was talking about this at all. And again, this kind of thing happens all the time. Here's the prank call that targeted white Iowa cornerback Cooper DeJean last year before he was drafted to the Eagles. Watch.
Hello? What's up? To who? Holy. I appreciate you. I appreciate it. Who's this? It's a prank. It's a prank.
I don't know.
Some dude said he was with the Green Bay Packers.
Okay, so spot the difference. It's not that hard to see. The difference in this case is that Shedeur Sanders has been turned into a racial martyr by the sports media because he was drafted a few rounds later than expected. The same media that didn't care in the slightest when a white player was pranked the same way last year. And actually, that one is worse too because he believed it for a second. There was like a moment when he thought he was really being drafted, and then it was ripped away from him, which that is cruel. That's a mean thing to do to somebody. But then everybody's laughing about it, and not laughing in a mean way, and he laughs about it. Because it's pretty messed up to do that, but okay, they got you. Everybody laughs it off, and we move on with our lives. So this is the clearest possible case of race-based outrage and race-based reporting that you can get. Therefore, from a trivial prank call, we can make at least one non-trivial observation. The media, along with some of the most powerful corporations in the country, are as race-obsessed as ever. And more specifically, they are continuing to push anti-white propaganda that seeks to minimize the problems of a disfavored demographic while amplifying the problems of a favored demographic. They're not even really trying to hide it, even though the vast majority of Americans have made it clear that they're tired of this nonsense. Despite the election of Donald Trump, the gutting of DEI all over the country, the erasure of the ridiculous end racism slogan from the end zones, all the legal rulings favoring merit over affirmative action, we're still being subjected to absurd, over-the-top claims of black victimhood. Everything about the Shedeur Sanders story could have been ripped from the headlines in 2020. We like to think that we've moved past the height of the BLM-era racial insanity, but the entire Shedeur Sanders saga proves again that we are still very much in the thick of it. We're being told with a straight face to pity a multimillionaire who's only capable of talking about how legendary he is solely on the basis of his skin color. But, he's not actually legendary. You got to earn that. You got to earn legendary status. Maybe he will be one day, but right now he's not. And despite his fall in the draft, he is still maybe the most overhyped and overdiscussed athlete in recent sports history. And so is the entire narrative about what a victim he supposedly is. And that is why, once again, everyone turning Shedeur Sanders into a racial martyr is today canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Michelle Obama has a Freudian slip in a rant about child mutilation. Neil Young claims that Tesla is for fascists. And Tim Walz admits Kamala's big mistake. Check it out on The Michael Knowles Show.